All right. It is indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the Tackle. It is the 18th of November 2022. Renishi ni 18 mwaka ni mwezi ni wa mwezi wa 11 mwaka 2022. Natumai kwamba uko salama. You woken up well and you ready to tackle your day. It's a Sheria Wiki edition of the 18th of November 2022. Na kama kawaida tuko na daktari EKURU AUKOT Party Leader Third Way Alliance wapunguza mizigo. Pia Third Way ama punguza mzigo, utakujuza nasema punguza mzigo. Na punguza mzigo pia inasemekana imerudi. Last week he spoke about the return of punguza mzigo, ensuring that the citizens are able to carry mzigo kidogo. And also tuko na wakili AREBA SAMBA. He's not really a visitor on the tackle. He's been here quite a number of times. And he comes back again as we try to look into the legal issues of the week, or legal happenings of the week, and also the state of the nation and statecraft and administration. You get to analyze that shortly. Kama kawaida when you join, please like. When you like, we get to know that you're watching us. And I like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. When you join, please like. When you like, we get to know that you're watching us. And I like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. A lot of crazy things happening in the city. Ya kwanza ni baridi. It's very cold in the city. Ya pili, manyumba zinaanguka, zinaporomoka. I don't know what's going on with NCA and other regulating bodies. Very sad things are happening. Ya tatu ni security issues. And also the bandits are daring. They have decided to dare the government after the president spoke very toughly on banditry. The guys, yesterday morning, he said the other day evening, they went again and did that thing. Baringo. But anyway, kama kawaida lazima tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe. Tukirudi basi tunakuja kuona nani ameweza kuamka asubuhi ya leo. Let me know where you're watching us from as well. Let me know where you're watching us from this morning. Let me know where you're watching us from this morning. Haya, tuende tukaombe. Mighty Father, we come before you this morning. We worship you, glorify your name. Thank you for another opportunity to be alive. Even thank you for this conversation as we have it. May it edify the fabric of this country. For you pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Haya. Tuone nani ameweza kuamka mapema hii. Paul Kibiago, good morning Gerald and your guest. Good morning to you Joseph Mutembe. Good morning Gerald. Good morning to you Joseph. Dennis Kipkemwa, good morning. Gerald Bito, good morning to you. You're doing well. Shiro, she's live from Eldoret. What Eldoret mambo vipi? What Eldoret? What was happening yesterday? What did I see happening yesterday? Lootings mchana. I don't know. Did you see that, Doctor?
Yes, I saw it and I was actually surprised. Eldomat. Guys were even stealing a generator.
Imagine, jamaa anatoka na generator saa 4 mchana hapo.
Yeah, this is the city of Niban, of where the president comes from.
Imagine.
I thought law and order should be top notch.
And actually, these guys, they're actually trying to become a city. As we're speaking, they've been pursuing the process of being a city. So it's my hometown. I was actually surprised to see what was happening. Lootings in China. I thought I was watching something from South Africa. Then I saw Eldoret.
I think having grown up in Eldoret, having schooled in Eldoret, that was a very familiar scene. Those are the streets that we used to frequent, and I was like, "This is Eldoret. This is Kenya." I think I was shocked. Kotimoja, what's happening?
Kotimoja is in Canada. Kotimoja is in Canada. Is in Canada.
Tarudi na Kotimbili.
But I'll tell you this, Wakili and the talk. I'm not surprised that what we saw in Eldoret was actually happening. Let me start by just pointing out like two issues that describe perhaps the state of our nation today, even before we go to the agenda of today. You see, that looting in Eldoret is a reflection of the desperation that is in our society, in our communities. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I get requests every other day, not even every other day, multiple requests from people asking for basics.
Yes.
Basics. Mtu anakuomba 200 ya unga. Nataka pesa ya kwenda hospitali. Sijui nini hatujakula siku 3. So there's a desperate situation in the country. People should not just look at the famine and drought that is ravaging the northern parts of Kenya and the rest. There is also famine in these cities. People are suffering. People are actually sleeping hungry. Yeah. People, by the time mtu anakuomba 100 bob, 100 atitua kule. There's a serious situation going on in our country today. And partly that's why you're seeing even this crime is increasing. It's not even about, for me, the failure of vigilance by the police. The situation is just desperate. Okay. Number 2, I've been doing some experiment for the last 1.5 weeks. I've been using Bolt a lot. But I decided to have a conversation with the Bolt drivers. On average, where I go for my meetings, I'm paid 170, 210. Imagine 170 Kenya shillings, 210 in a Bolt. So I asked this driver, now, if your fare is 170, wacha hata kabla hujakuja kwa unga, this automobile, this vehicle, you need to pay what, 177 per liter. So how do you maintain this car? I mean, in terms of just fuel alone, ujanunulia, oil, wear and tear, maintenance. So for me, it brought to my mind a very, very serious situation that I think this government really must address. Kenyans are being enslaved by these apps, the Bolts and the rest. Because somebody somewhere, I don't know, is it Bulgaria or wherever they are, is taking automatically 18% from that 170.
20%, not 18, 20%.
It's 20.
Between 20 to 25. Actually, I had a discussion with someone last week.
I think maybe 20.
That's a 20%.
So imagine somebody is sitting somewhere because they just developed an app. 20%, no taxes, no wear and tear, no akuna atakujua mambo ya, your will, whatever. So I asked myself, our constitution actually prohibits holding people in servitude. That's in the chapter 4 of our constitution. Yeah. So Kenyans are actually being enslaved. So I asked this guy, he tells me, by the way, I just do this work because I don't want to be idle. Yeah. But at the end of the day, woe unto you if you don't even own the vehicle. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because now the owner of the vehicle expects maybe something like 1,500.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So you actually go home with nothing. But you have woken up at 4, you have toiled,
moved around the whole day.
But you are actually enriching somebody else, either, I don't know, wherever these guys are. So that's really a very, very bad situation.
Karao pia chote yake.
Yeah. Ukiambia when you drop to the airport, they are scared. Because Karao somehow, I've got an eye for these Bolt people. So one time, I decided to confront a cop at Wilson Airport. Why are you harassing this guy? Let's be very sincere. This car has insurance. This guy has license. This car is licensed to be on a road. What is the difference between this car and those yellow cabs at JKIA and Wilson Airport? Mm-hmm. So that state of affairs, to be honest with you, is what is probably driving people into criminality. Yeah. And one of the drivers even confessed to me and told me that these Bolt guys have become so violent. There are even stabbings of their own clients. Yeah, there've been like a bit of violence. In fact, for me, the other day, I ordered a Uber, and then I ordered this. I think a lady came online, answered the call. So I was just coming down to go and pick the Uber from my house, and she left. So I call and ask her, "Why are you leaving?" She tells me, after all, the fare, it's a short trip, and I can't wait for you here for more than 3 minutes. Wow.
And it's what I want to stress.
But I looked at it and I said, I think there's a level of depression among these drivers. They are feeling exploited, and apparently our government is doing nothing about it.
And hopelessness, like it doesn't pay to work anymore.
Gerald,
like, why should I work?
Gerald, I think picking it up from where Dr. has left, we're in a state in the country where I think people are looking like there's no tomorrow. I think coming from the COVID era, so many things changed, and we have to appreciate that fact. So many people started working from home. Some companies developed business continuity plans, which saw a number of layoffs. I mean, there's a new generation that came in. I think you saw from last night, like the Judiciary, people are complaining because the online platforms are not working. Whenever we used to go to court, for some of us who are practitioners, we would go to court. There's a very popular restaurant opposite to court. We go there, have breakfast, chit-chat, as you're waiting for your matter to proceed. Now, I don't even know how Milimani law courts looks like. I rarely go there. What does that mean? That means that the lady who used to work at the restaurant, the gentleman who used to work at the restaurant has lost his or her job. Yeah. I mean, and right now, who is employing? Nobody. So there's a new reality of doing things that came into the world, not even Kenya. And when it came around, the way of doing things changed. Also, the cost of living went high. With 100 bob, I mean, most of us go to the supermarkets. I mean, you go to the supermarket. The other day, I posted some photo with my daughter, and I said, this shopping is 5,000, the girl not included. And you could just see you have picked 3-4 items. And guys were like, so where is that 5,000? I'm like, I think this 5,000 is just walking around in an air-conditioned building. The reality is that most people are struggling. Okay. As we are seated here, the way we used to conduct things is not the same way we used to conduct things. Even the people who used to depend on us, I mean, right now the dependency rate, the people who used to depend on me, if they were 4, now I have to cut them because I also don't have enough for somebody to depend.
For your own.
I mean, for my own. I mean, that is why another discussion I hear people saying we have to save more. And I ask, sometimes, you save when you have surplus. You can't save what you don't have. You can't save when you're in negative. So this criminality and even, the way there's a lot of insecurity is because the way life has taken people. And another issue, Gerard, you raised the other day is, have we gotten to a point where we have made crime something like, today, if now I decide to rob Dr. EKURU AUKOT outside here, you'll be looking at me and say, wacha wamalizane wa huko. Kenyans are so stressed that somebody will be mugged in front of you and you don't care.
You don't.
I mean, nobody, look at most of those videos of people being mugged and people their handbags being snatched. Life seems to go on. Why? Because somebody is just asking himself, probably, I'm running to a kibarua. Should I stop and help government to chase this thief? So there is a lot of depression. There's a lot of desperation within Kenyans. I mean, there's a lot of hopelessness, I can say, within Kenyans. And the conversation Dr. EKURU is saying about the Uber drivers is something that I encounter every day. Somebody picked me from State House Road the other day and drove me all the way to Carnival. And then when you look, the app is telling me 230. And then I'm like, so where is this 230 going? I mean, so there's a lot, there's a bigger perspective that we need to look at when we are talking about governance.
And automatically 20% is taken off.
Yes. 20% is taken off.
20%, that's about what? Is it, I don't know.
So 20% of 230, that's around 30 shillings.
Yes.
No, it's more than 30.
So that's gone. And then now, hata gallon ya mafuta hujanunua. Mwenye gari labda nangoja at the end of the day. So, and I think, to stretch this conversation further, you see, talking of depression, I mean, I'm in a group of parents that are interested in mental health in this country. Let me tell you, you'll see guys dressed nicely in suits and even driving some nice cars. People are depressed. There is mental illness in this country that we are not talking about. And I hope one of these days you can actually host somebody to come and speak about mental health in Kenya. And I'm more than happy to organize for you to invite one of the parents in our group.
I would appreciate it.
Because there is a lot of serious depression, especially among, for example, even the so-called elite in this country. You can imagine after COVID, if you are still paying for mortgage, you have lost your job, your salary has been cut. And by the way, now let me take this opportunity to also say, although things are beginning to actually normalize, there is a group of employers that are still exploiting Kenyans. They are still paying them at 50% of their labor. And people are silent. People are quiet about it. Like I know a private entity where I used to know almost all the staff because I frequent there. It's a private members club. But now it's almost like totally new people so I decided to interview a couple of them. Why did you leave employment? Say, I can't afford. The establishment still insists on paying us at I think they're at now 70%. Yeah, when things have come back to normal. So they enumerate for you the bills that they actually pay. You see, like for example, Bitok, there are 4 things that you must do when you're in this city. 4 things.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. No. In terms of, to avoid that suffering, 1, you must have a roof over your head.
Yes.
Meaning you have to pay rent. Yes. Okay? Once you go into that rental facility, you must pay electricity, you must pay water. Then, of course, you must buy food. Then the 4th one is you must have transport to go and look for a job. Ujaongeza hata vitu kama medical care, sujui nini, relaxation. So those 4 things, if you can't achieve those things, you go into depression. Right now, landlords will tell you, I mean, the other day I was having a conversation with a friend. Sasa hata tukifukuza huyu tenant, who ataenda wapi ma who will come? There's a problem, And of course, the Ching Chong apartments have actually spoiled the market big time. you know. So sometimes you find landlord, afadhali niamke asubuhi to chase a debt than to wake up and not chase anything.
And you have nothing to chase at that
Yes.
point. All right.
So that's the state of the affairs of in the country today, my friend. And more than that, part just from drought and famine that we're hearing. But in the cities, kunikubaya.
Mambo haiendi.
That's why kwa town yako jana.
The life is not lifing, Gerald. The nini is not nini.
Mambo kwetu bana. Yeah, I'm shocked.
Sasa kama hata Eldoret watu wanaanza kuvamia supermarket na nyinyi nasikia ni watu wakuliwa mko na chakula mingi. Shida iko wapi?
Unajua pia kuna raia wanatembea hapo pia wako njaa.
Unajua?
Raia, Eldoret ni town ya wageni.
There's one thing I think you need to understand with money. Money has a downspine kind of effect. I know today Dr. EKURU is not buying us tea because he does not have enough.
In fact, I was going to show up with Java bag.
Sometimes back, ideally, you will finish a show, then you walk into a
Don't
restaurant.
finish a show. You come in here with Java goodies.
And then when you have taken
You always look
breakfast-
forward to Friday.
When you
Now these days there's nothing to look forward to.
when you have taken breakfast, if there is a guy
nothing to
who's
smile
a beggar
about.
somewhere on the road, when I have surplus, I'll pity and probably give them like a 50 bob. But when I've not taken breakfast, I'm looking at that guy on the street, I'm like, probably has more money than me. So you're like, so that money, when one person does not have money, down the line, nobody has. Because you cannot just spread that money down the line. So the nini is not nining, Gerald.
The nini is not
The nini is not nining. I mean, that one I should not lie.
Okay. I don't know whether you have also noticed, Wakili, there's an increased number of beggars
Yes.
at the street lights.
Kila kona.
But there's a group that I really want to commend. There's this group of young people doing acrobatics. And asking for
Yes.
At least there are
Yes.
people, you can
Yes.
see the talent
Yes.
in those people. But of course, there are also others who are just, begging, and the number is now increased. So you can imagine, these are the visible ones. These are the ones we can see. What about those who cannot see?
All right.
So the state of the affairs is not good.
It's not good at all. Okay. I don't know. Mambo mali ulipo. Are the things nining where you are or they are not nining? All right. In the all on the still news of nining, the government ninid this weekend gave us nini, the Hustler Fund. So it's here. Say capital interest cut up to 8%. You can borrow a minimum of 500 Kenyan shillings and a maximum of 50,000. Yeah, and you guys came up and said, what can 50,000 do? I don't know what 50,000 can do for you. But just looking at that
50,000 or
briefly.
500?
50 maximum is 50. Minimum is 500.
So there's a question that is emerging. People asked me this, speak about this, the Hustler Fund. First of all, they have said that you can only apply online. Now, I asked a question yesterday on Twitter. What is the depth of our internet connectivity in the country? And I'm thinking about some of the rural locations in this country, and there are many. If you think about, for example, 80% of the total land mass in Kenya, it comprises of the arid and semi-arid lands, where even electricity isn't there.
Yeah.
So when we say that this Hustler Fund will be an application online, I'm thinking about our people saying Lunga Lunga, Ukoto Donyang, those
The Molos of
those small islands,
Ngalayani.
Namu, Yangalani and the rest. You've been there. You've been to Turbi. Yeah. So how do you think that the youth in Turbi, Marsabit, Kondani, can access this fund? Or even in your own Moiben.
Yeah.
Even in Moiben, constituents where you come
At least
from.
kidogo anaenda center.
Ndio kuna Kenya Center, lakini does everybody have because for you to access online, you must have a smartphone. If you have a Mulika Mwizi or Kabambe, that story is just a mirage.
Okay. So unaona iwezi.
I think for me, by the way, it is like the youth fund. You remember the youth fund? The youth fund collapsed. It's a hoax. Because, first of all, you are talking about an employment rate of about 70% of Kenyans, and especially the youth. Then you are requiring for them to bring collaterals. Where do they get collateral from?
I think
It's laughable.
there's something that I've been trying to think through. Why are these funds collapsing? We have the Women Enterprise Fund. We have the Youth Fund. At some point, we spent a lot of money in terms of consultancy to amalgamate something called the Biashara Fund, which, if my memory serves me right, the amount that was used around that consultancy should have been in excess of 50 million to try and see how to come up with a wholesome fund called the Biashara Fund, but it never took off. I've been thinking, have the guys who are trying to implement this Hustler Fund, gone back and analyzed why these two funds have not created impact. Because you can only learn from your mistakes. Have they gone back and sat with the people who have been in charge of these funds, or the people who have benefited from these funds, and even sat with the managers of this fund and try to analyze as to why these two funds have not been successful? If I speak of my own constituency, Kitutu Masaba constituency, I know the Uwezo Fund was suspended for some time because of some management issues. It's recently that the Member of Parliament went back and intervened, and I saw a letter from the fund, from the board, that the fund will be reactivated. But that is beside the point. The point then is are the funds creating impact to start with? If today you walk into the street of Nairobi, or let's leave the street of Nairobi alone. If today you walk into Kainuk in Turkana, can you get somebody who will come out and say, I am what I am because of Youth Fund? If today you walk into Mabera in Kuria, can you get a woman who will come out and say, I'm running this enterprise because of the impact of the Uwezo Fund? Sometimes I see what we bring in media in terms of advertising, in terms of the impact. And you and I know that we will probably pick an entrepreneur, give them 1 million, and use that entrepreneur to make noise in terms of the effectiveness of that fund. So I kept on reflecting that it's one of the agenda of the current government, that if this agenda is to at all move forward, then there needs to be a lot of reflection in terms of what we have been having before, what have been the pitfalls, what have been the advantages. My own feeling as AREBA Samba is that there's a lot of rush. There's a lot of rush to implement this fund without necessarily looking at, without necessarily putting in the necessary safeguards, the framework. You saw even the public participation. We only have 4 days to do the public participation. You are sending one team to go and get people from Bomet, Nyamira, Kisii, Migori, I don't know, to come to one central place. Is a hustler in Bomet able to proceed to Kisii, central location, to give his views to the board, to the team that was going around from Treasury? So I feel that there's a lot of hurry to tick that box that we are implementing this, but at the end of the day, we are missing putting in the necessary legal framework, institutional framework, and all those frameworks which are needed. That is my feeling.
The way I see it, I think people who run government today are basically lack any ability to learn from the past. They don't go beyond to try and establish what is it that I can do better than the past administration. For example, as you rightfully said, Akili, we have the Uwezo Fund, we have the Women Enterprise Fund, we have the Youth Fund. I wish there could have been even a critique of the performance of these funds in terms of even statistics, numbers of people who have benefited from it. Yes. Like I cannot tell you for a fact, coming from Turkana, I do not know any single person from Turkana that have benefited from those funds. Not a single one. We're one of the largest counties in Kenya. No, even in this Nairobi, I struggle to find out somebody who says, so what has been the lessons learned before you now talk of Hustler Fund? And I can already see the Hustler Fund is failing because of the bottlenecks they are putting into place. So there is inability to learn from the past. And that takes me to a very fundamental question, Bitok, about this new administration of William Ruto. For close to 2 months now, we've heard them say that they need time. Initially, they had said within 100 days, they will implement certain things. Fair enough. There's some boxes that they have ticked. But I want to warn Kenyans that let's be very wary of political promises during campaigns. When somebody comes in and now seated on that seat and administering, now he's confronted with the real politic, not the chance and the singing in political rallies and the dancing in the political rallies. Those are totally different things. The dances, the ceremonies in political rallies are totally different from now taking the seat of government. And I say this for many, many reasons. For example, as you can see even today, government has not really been fully constituted. Rigiji, I've heard it several times say, we need time. Now he's talking of 1 year. I dare ask President William Ruto. William Ruto has been campaigning just like his other brother, Raila Odinga, who he defeated in this election. William Ruto has been campaigning for the last almost 5 years. So meaning he had a plan of action once he takes over the presidency, including putting together his cabinet. It shouldn't take that long. And I know there's a lot of scramble now to join government. But the truth for the matter be talk, it is not everybody that can be accommodated in government. What a government of the day, any government in power need to do is to facilitate a conducive environment for people to be able to make their living. Okay? Not all of us can work in government. Again, it's not even possible. Even if you look at William Ruto's inner circle, the people who are in his campaign, not all of them have been accommodated in government. So I'm saying this because I think what we will now expect of the William Ruto administration is to implement the plans they had hatched. Because if you look at this campaign team, they are serious fellows. On matters economy, you have the David Ndiz, who you have hosted in this show. You had many people on matters security, matters media, all those. So you had expertise. So the problem for me I have is this postponement of implementing your plan of action. Did you actually have a plan of action?
To begin with.
From the very beginning, or you didn't have? Because why should you now be taking too much time to implement things? So for you to form a government, you must have an action plan. And that's why sometimes I follow the politics of some of the Western countries. Because they don't talk of manifesto. They talk of a plan, a program of action. So once you take over power, that program kicks in immediately. Yeah.
Like a software.
Una upgrade.
Government 2.0.
But you see also, when people say, give us time, there's another legitimate expectation, Wakili. Then you should also tell us what was wrong with the previous administration. We are not being told. Apart from just hearing Reggie continuously saying that they inherited a dilapidated economy, I think now he has stopped saying it. But he's also not telling us to what extent was the economy dilapidated. We need to know the nitty-gritties. So that, if you're telling us, give us time, you should also tell us, hey, we have done an audit. On the economy part, this was the problem. Say on food security, this was on health, on education, and all that. That way, I think people will be able to say, okay, I think these guys have to fix some problem. But we are not hearing that. Nobody's coming to tell us what was wrong.
All right. Do you think we need more? They need more time, AREBA. Do you need time to figure out government?
I also needed time to come to the tackle in the morning. I think I feel the current administration, but again, as Dr. Arias said, you need to tell somebody clearly, like a mechanic, when I take my car to the mechanic, he tells me I need 1 hour because I can see the exhaust is broken. I need to remove it, kimbilia chomelea, then I nirudi, then I fix it. Within 1.5 hours, you will have finished. I fully agree that one of the things that is not being communicated is we need time to remove this, polish it, put it back, and then we'll be ready to move. I think once that really comes out clearly, I think we don't have a problem as Kenyans to give people time. Because at the end of the day, it's better for somebody to ask for more time to do something rather than not getting it done. So I feel it's a good thing to ask for more time, but then tell us, we need time to be able to do A, B, C, D. We have to undo A, B, C, D for us to be able to do A, B, C, D. What I think what is lacking is that is that angle of strategic communication in terms of you have to clearly communicate in terms of the intention and what is that is lacking that you need this time to do. I think that is what is missing from.
But let me ask you, Samba. You said you need a time to come to the tackle. And you know what we do here.
Yes.
And you said you're coming because you know what we are doing here and because you know what you want to come and do. Can you sit here and tell us now you need time to figure out what you're going to say? So why did you come?
Probably I might have arrived with probably when I arrived somewhere there, I got a mental block. So I might need 10 minutes just at the holding room to be able to refreshen myself. So I think, Gerald, what is missing, and we all agree, is that angle of strategic communication. So that when our beloved Deputy President stands on the podium, then he has to clearly communicate in terms of what is this that you need time to do? What is this that is supposed to be done, and how? I think that for me, that is the element which is lacking. But requesting for time, I don't think it's a crime. It is something. It is a reasonable request. We all ask for time, even in court, to do one or two things before we can proceed.
So much time.
You know, we talk in the context of Sharia Wiki here. Now I'm reminded of my days as a student of administrative law. You know, in administrative law, accountability has two components to it. What we call explanatory accountability and a mandatory accountability. You must explain to account for a decision or a policy decision or the failure of it. Then now you can amend by suggesting what you're going to do. And I think this is what we are lacking to see in this new administration, especially because there is no any other time they have. The sooner they do, they make those two elements of accountability, a mandatory accountability, and first of all, explanatory accountability. Let them explain what actually is fundamentally wrong with the running of government and why Kenyans are not able to achieve certain things. That explanation is very important, and that's part of accountability. Now, they put in measures to be able to amend that. So any student of administrative law will remind you, but I'm missing the explanatory accountability in terms of the actions, but I'm also missing the mandatory aspect of it. What is it that they are putting in place to be able to actually amend those mishaps, those problems? That for me, I'm missing.
All right. Okay, there's another accusation that the government have been accused of, AREBA, and they've been accused of not moving away from the campaign, especially Rigiji has been accused of sticking there. Me and William Ruto, we suffered debt capture. We found that the dilapidated economy, about 97 million. We are struggling to fix the problems that the other government left. Is it true? Is it true that they are stuck there? Or it's a perception?
I think you can look at it from different angles. I think, again, it's an issue of communication. Okay. The expectation was that immediately after Kukula Biblia Kasarani, I think the communication should have changed in terms of what is it that we are now going to do.
But it is the administration which is speaking. What else can you communicate?
I fully understand it's the administration which is speaking, and I'm saying that you can look at it from two angles. The first angle is that now you have this lady that you have been wanting to marry for so long, and you have to tell the people, well, when I didn't have this lady, I used to struggle. I used to come home and I used to come home naanza kuwasha jiko. I mean, you're just trying to show that now I have this lady, and you're just trying to move away from the past. That is the first angle to look at it, that you are trying to look at the past without what you now have in terms of the struggles that you used to pass through. The gain shocked you. I mean, the gain probably you're saying, hey, with this lady now, I just get home and I find warm water for bathing. With this lady, I get home and find food ready. I mean, you are just trying to live that moment. And let's give it to them. It's barely 100 days. And I think the honeymoon will be over within the first 100 days. And after...
Wakile, let me tell you.
He's being a true advocate.
Yeah. Picking from your example, first of all, I mean, let's be very clear here. Most of these people are not new in government.
I agree with you.
They have been in government. So they cannot delay implementing their plans of action by saying that give us time. William Ruto has been a deputy president. In fact, he even said to us openly how he was relegated to the periphery outside the government. So at least now that this is already a revelation from his part. So he's not new. Rigathi Gachagua has been a member of parliament. So meaning they have been calling government into account in parliament. Murkomen has been the leader of majority in the Senate. So meaning these are very insiders in the government. Kina Wetangula, they have been in the Senate. So if you look at even the cabinet itself, they are not new people, except maybe, I don't know, Namukachi, Nakumincha. I never knew about that.
Nakumincha and AREBA Samba.
Somebody, my friend Soipan Tuya, has been a women rep from Narok for 2 terms. So she was an insider. So these people are not new in government. Okay. So they know. But, picking from the example of Akili about a man who was married, in traditional Africa, the risk of sounding funny, you cannot regurgitate anymore about your marriage or the day you got married. Once you are married,
You are married.
you are married, and we start looking for the signs, the results
of your work.
of your work. So we want to see some evidence of that marriage.
Evidence of activity.
I think probably Daktari, I think since we got coming.
Or you remember in I think, was it in Chinua Achebe? Things fall apart. When I think Chinua Achebe writes somewhere that, if a woman is pregnant, you don't go around saying, I'm pregnant. We can see it. So you are not, you just not. So you are in government. Don't tell us, back elections. You are now in government. Yeah? So implement.
One of the things we have to give it is that I think since cabinet came in, I have not had the story.
You need to focus on impregnating your girl.
Yeah, I think the moment...
Not giving us
I think
testimony.
most of those conversations of a dilapidated economy and being a truthful man and discouraging golf and drinking used to come before we had a cabinet. I think after we had a cabinet, I think that conversation has slowed down. Probably because I think the questions are coming up that, hey, you can't be talking that you inherited 97 million when the CS for Treasury is quiet. So I think the CSs have come to feel a gap that most of us could identify in terms of communicating government policies. And I'm hoping, as Dr. EKURU AUKOT has said, these are not entirely new people when it comes to running government. So we have the likes of Miano, who have been at the helm of, I think, Kenjan.
That's a long time.
I mean, these are people who know government, how government works. The likes of Ndungu, the CS for Treasury. These are technocrats who've been there. So I feel that now, and I hope that my feeling is right, that now that there's cabinet in place, we have substantive ministers who can make policy pronouncements. One of the challenges we had, Dr. is policy pronouncements were being done out there in the field without clear thought. And I felt also that this was something that we needed to address, because I know of issues that we had government trying to clarify what government had said. I think when running government, that is not the best thing that you have to get. I mean, it's more like when I come from my house, I say something in the market and my wife is in a different state saying, no, this is not what we meant. Of course, we have had instances where the central bank governor had to quote unquote clarify some issues. We have had the issue. Of course, my friend CS for Education, Ezekiel Mashogu, had to again clarify. We had the Deputy President, my very good friend Rigiji, also clarifying the issue of the Shamba system. So I feel that when you have to always clarify issues, you have to take more time to really have clarity of mind before you can be able to pronounce some of those issues. Right. So I feel that going forward now, we need to have clarity of pronouncements when it comes to government policies. We need to have clarity of thought when you are saying the implementation matrix, and we need to see more of Madividi. I think I have not seen my very good friend Musalia Mudavadi, the Prime Cabinet Secretary. We need to see.
He's actually done. We should be speaking for government. Anyway,
I mean, Daktari, have you seen your good friend Mudavadi?
No, but I also think that some of those names are just cosmetic. What is now Prime CS? So, I mean, you see these titles, you see like BITOC. It's like what I'm seeing a lot of these ministers posting, saying that I've held this meeting. Like I say, Rigiji posting that he has held a meeting with the 25 representatives of the UN agencies. Just like that, as dry as it is, I would like to hear what is the benefit of these meetings to the people of Kenya. What are the plans these agencies have for Kenya to alleviate some of the suffering? I want to go to the software of this meeting. Don't give me pictures alone, posting them on internet. Even as we can do that. In fact, it's people like us who should be allowed to do that because we are not running government.
And we are not reporting anything.
We are not reporting anything.
Just saying, let's take
the selfies like the one we will take after this show.
Please, thank you so much for coming.
Yes. So I think it's important that actually we begin to see some like I said. If you look at someone like Musalia Mudavadi, Musalia Mudavadi has even been our vice president. You remember, that. Yeah, he's been a deputy prime minister. So these are people who should know where the challenges really in
shimo inakwanga.
Shimo iko wapi? Tuanze kuziba hiyo shimo. And like Abbas, I can see my friend Abbas Njuguna is saying that the truth is government seems to be broke. At least tell us you are broke. Because
we want to hear something.
Yeah, tell us you are broke and tell us, okay, what plans are you putting in place to fix that brokenness? Because also, when Rigiji said that they only inherited 97 million Of course, first of all, I don't think that's true.
Why? You want to tell us a truthful man is lying?
No, I don't think that is
The truthful man.
If the crocodile comes from the river and tells you the alligator is sick, who are you to doubt, Daktari?
No, I doubt that because if I look at the county allocations to each and every county, it's in billions of Kenya shillings. This is not money that is, it's money that is held in treasury. Yeah. So you cannot say that we only have 97 million. Then how do you explain the billions that each county is actually allocated? That's still taxpayers' money. So that's why I don't believe that story. The truthful man was this time untruthful. I don't believe him.
Are you trying to say the man of God?
I think he lied. I have no fear of being quoted in this. Rigiji lied that day. After all, what evidence did he give us that actually it was only 97? Now that they have decided to be truthful, man of God,
should release a statement.
at least show us evidence. But now the truth is also emerging that the inauguration ceremony costed us 350 million. Yeah. So how can we, a broke country, spend so much money? Me, I would have just held that ceremony at the gardens, State House Gardens. Kula Biblia, go to work. Yeah.
All right. Kwa kiwanja. David Ngetich, having studied, good morning, GB and my senior and President Aukot and senior AREBA Samba. Having studied under Mr. Samba and being an ardent supporter of Mr. Aukot, today I am enjoying a legal discussion. This government is failing us in a huge way. They are not being truthful with the issues they are facing and giving us a good projection of implementation process. They should be honest and we can try to accommodate them, but they shouldn't rush us into implementing costly projects at taxpayers' cost. All right, Larry Kimonori, biggest contractor, east and south of Limpopo. Good morning, Gerald. Great insights from the panelists. Asante sana. Bas Juguna, through this government seems to be broke. Okay, and what the panel is demanding is at least tell us you're broke. Tuambia una kitu. Ndio sasa tuanze kukuelewa.
Hata wewe unaona siku hizi maji utupatie hapa.
Mambo ni kubaya. Things are very relevant here. Na mimi sitaki kuwekea. Unajua pia naweza weka maji ya mfereji kwa chupa ya supermarket. Alafu kesho mwanze kuendesha mseme mimi ni mtu mbaya. So as a truthful man, I want to tell you that things are not working here. I inherited a dilapidated studio.
From who? And you know the good Bible says that the truth shall set you free.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell Kenyans the truth.
Nataka kuambia ukweli ya kwamba hakuna maji kwenye mambo ni kubaya. Daniel Kore, to me it's too early to judge the new administration. Kenyans are impatient a lot. I think and believe that things will fall in place. All right. Good morning to you, Daniel. And Mil, good morning. Good morning. Sabuna Kibet, good morning. Good morning to you. Jels Olekoipa, all the way from Loita, Narok County. Asante sana. Good morning. Munga Lito continue from Covent United Kingdom. Good morning. Tuning in for Covent United Kingdom. Going to be part of this morning's Sheria Wiki edition. Asante sana. Seeing someone from, I think, Uganda, Jemba Junior, Museveni Masaka Yuji, mambo Uganda. Sasa sisi tuko na shida hapa yetu kubwa.
But we are hosting a lot of Ugandans around. Kina kina Bobby Wines were in Fungamano yesterday.
Oh, they were.
I even see Dr. Kisa Besije being hosted. It's a very huge Ugandan delegation.
Oh, is it?
They are discussing about human rights in Uganda.
But they are discussing it in Kenya.
In Kenya. The same way, I think the last, there's a year when we would have senior government officials from Somalia and from South Sudan making pronouncements about South Sudan from Nairobi. I mean, and I'm informed that most of those people live in Kenya. I mean, the same things that at times you want to make a pronouncement about Kenya from another country. But I feel that this is the culture of Africans. And I want to give an example from when Devolution came in. There were some counties that where county officials used to operate from. And when I think about that, I think about Nandi, Elgeyo Marakwet. They all used to live in Trans Nzoia. No, they used to live in, is it called Uasin Gishu?
Yes.
Recently, my governor, Nyaribo, issued a directive saying that all county officials should live in Nyamira. He doesn't want to see government vehicles running to Kisii in the evening. The point I'm trying to make is that sometimes we have to appreciate where we come from. Sometimes it doesn't matter the situation which is in where we come from. We have to stay there and see the challenges which are there for us to be able to improve them. Just imagine if some of these CSS would walk to our public hospitals for medication and they see the kind of suffering that taxpayers and their employers go through. they will quickly move with speed and make appropriate recommendations. Let me go back to my example. You are a deputy governor, for example, of Nyamira County. You live in Kisii. When it gets to lunchtime, your convoy drives to Kisii County. You go have your lunch, then you finish and you come to have your meeting back in Nyamira. Your office is in Nyamira, your home is in Kisii. Even when the local hospital does not have medication, because ideally you will assume that Kisii is more developed than some of these private hospitals, when the local folks are complaining that the hospitals do not have medication, you're there wondering, what are you saying? When I'm Manuel, I walk into a hospital in Kisii and I'm treated. You fail to understand that you're operating from another county, a privilege that your employers, the people who pay the tax that you are using, cannot afford. So there is that need and there's that thought that sometimes we have to look at the public utilities that we have left for the masses, that we have left for our employers, that we have left for the taxpayers. Sometimes we need to assess them and ask ourselves, really, is this what we wish for? One time I challenged, I think the outgoing PS for health, that when I make noise about my local dispensary called Gachuba, the reason why I need medication there is that whereas I might have the privilege of getting air evacuation from Nairobi if I fall sick in the village, the first 20 minutes, if I get, let's say, a cardiac arrest, are very critical. I need to be attended in the local dispensary. My mother, my father, my brothers, my sisters, my uncles, my aunts, my grandmothers, who have not had a privilege of leaving the village, they depend on that local dispensary for survival. So whereas I might be in a privileged position, I have people who live there, even if it's the CS, let's say CS Machogu, when he's in his own local village. I know if he falls sick, he has the privilege, the government can send air evacuation. But what happens in the first 10 or 15 minutes?
And I think that takes us to the next question, Dr. and Wakili, which is counties. Right now, we are pushing toward 5 more counties in the country, 5 extra counties. And the biggest question is, well, has the devolution or the counties that are existing been able to serve the people? Do we need more? Have they not been effective enough because we have less? Do we need more counties?
Part of the reason why we proposed Punguza Mizigo bill is because we had found out that the counties per se, as macro levels of administration, the second level of government, was not effective enough. And we found out this when we looked at the effect of county funds at the ward level. This is why we proposed the Ward Development Fund, the idea that you actually take services to people's very doorsteps. And that's when you can begin to see actually devolution. In fact, if you go back, if you go to Article 6, Sub-Article 3, which we have read here many times, it requires that a national organ must devolve its services, including itself, to each and every part of the Republic of Kenya. Now, at Third Way Alliance Kenya, we had interpreted that to mean that positively, constructively, that it is not just the county headquarters. Because a lot of MCS told us that money comes to the county headquarters. Say, in the case of AREBA here, itafika Keroka. From Keroka now, to go to those wards in Nyamira County and to serve the people, politics kicks in. If your MCA is not friendly to the governor or the vice versa, nyinyi munanyima maendeleo. Yet this is your right. So to that extent, you can argue that devolution from a county level perspective has not been effective. If I had to give you my own example, coming from Turkana, for the longest time, there are 2 words in our minds, in our speak, almost every other day: marginalization, minority. And this is the story probably of the entire NFD. It is also the story of people like, the Kuria in Migori. It's the story of the Teso in Busia, although in case of Busia, it's not true because Teso has been a governor 2 times, 2 terms. It could be the case of the Sengwer in Bungoma, Mount Elgon area.
Yes,
So, but with the devolution and with the equitable distribution of money, and even the equalization fund, which we don't talk about anymore. It's in Article 204 of the Constitution. So the counties receive money. So what the counties killed is we, the Turkana today, can no longer speak of being minorities or marginalized. Actually, yes, we can say we're being minorities maybe because of population size,
But not
we
marginalized.
But not marginalized. We are not marginalized because we are equitably receiving money to be able to fix our historical problems. In fact, a county like Turkana has been the number 2 recipient, highest recipient after Nairobi.
Yes.
So where is marginalization? Now, that there is still marginalization, but it's marginalization within marginalization. So it's the people themselves marginalizing their own people. Because today, we used to say, Bana, unaletewa district commissioner back in the days, or provincial commissioner. Now he governs you. Now Katiba mesema, pick one of your own. He knows your problems. He knows the context. He knows what to prioritize in terms of fixing. So we can no longer blame even the national government because money comes in. But as you can see from the Auditor General report, that money comes in and is being stolen. It's for that reason that we said, we cannot dismantle counties right now. Certainly, herding them is not a solution. It cannot even be on the table anymore. And in fact, it's an abuse of process, of power, or whoever it is that is pushing for this nonsense. We cannot add any more counties. As a matter of fact, I will even favor of us to have 4 counties only, if need be.
4 counties?
Only, if need be. Call it the North, South, West, East. Probably just for coordination. But I will emphasize service delivery from the ward level so that the ward becomes the unit of accelerating development. Once you do that, and by the way, talk, and I hope tacklers are listening to this very keenly, the ward, in my view, is the only fastest way of actually equalizing Kenyans, or at least bringing Kenyans almost at par with each other. So that today, if in a ward, say in Lunga, the remotest part of this country, people enjoy Medicare, like in that dispensary Wakili was talking about, I can be attended to. My kids can go to school just around the block. There's security. You can even mobilize for jobs. In fact, from the smallest unit called the ward, it's possible for you to even plan on how to reduce poverty. Because today, our study of poverty is based on a macro level. I don't even think it is the county anymore, because we should have seen poverty levels as per county. But we are seeing poverty level from a national perspective. But if you go down to the smallest unit, then you are even able to plan properly and say, okay, what is the source of this poverty? Is it unemployment? Is it education? Is it bad healthcare? Then you fix it. So today, I would rather even have a debate about how we focus our service delivery at the ward level, but not to give MCS money. We can create what is called a conditional grant for purposes of development only. Not this thing of MPs now pushing for CDF. Because again, like we've said here in this show, and we have demonstrated to people, if you go to the 4th schedule of the Constitution, which demarcates, separates the functions of national government and county government, MPs are nowhere to be seen. Women reps are nowhere to be seen. So I would rather we amend this Constitution to focus development at the ward level. Trust me, if you have a good administration at the very top that follows the shilling, you don't need 10 years to equalize Kenya or to make every Kenyan comfortable from the ward level.
Areba, we need counties.
I will start with where he left in terms of the push.
I
I want to start from where he left in terms of the push and pull by members of parliament. For one, we have very idle members of parliament, and the reason why they are that idle is because there is nothing to do in the village. I will be guided. You are my senior. Sometimes we end up electing CDF managers instead of legislators, and instead of people to do oversight, and instead of people to do representation. Among those 3 key issues which are provided by the law, which is legislation, oversight, and representation, there is nowhere, absolutely nowhere, and my senior here, who's a teacher of the law and a constitutional expert, can guide me if I'm wrong, there is absolutely nowhere where disbursing of money in terms of the Constituency Development Fund comes in terms of those functions of members of parliament. I feel very sad that members of parliament are now threatening to riot because CDF has not been disbursed. I mean, sometimes, and we saw another idle member of parliament the other day now because there is no CDF to move around in the village, he's discussing the issue of presidential term limits. And I feel sorry for the people of Fafi that when you sent this gentleman to Nairobi, did you tell him to come and, ideally members of parliament are supposed to represent our views. So whenever they stand on the podiums, or rather whenever they do pressers, the first question that comes in my mind is he speaking on behalf of himself, or is he speaking on behalf of the electorate? And as I conclude on the issue of CDF, we need to have a clear separation of functions. You cannot be the person coming up with laws, then at the end of the day, be the implementing party. Framers of the Constitution did not anticipate such a mix-up. You cannot be the one now walking around in the village disbursing checks and telling people, and having school buses, having your photos there and telling people, this is courtesy of me. What the hell? I mean, I've always said that we need to move away from personalizing projects. Sometimes I move around and see photos of projects with Mike Mbuvi Sonko's photos, and I ask myself, so if today Dr. EKURU AUKOT is the governor of Nairobi and he builds this building and he puts his photo that this is courtesy of the EKURU AUKOT, which is a lie, by the way, that is courtesy of the taxpayers and that is courtesy of the monies which we pay. So tomorrow I come and I need to change the carpet. So should I put again my photo on the corner and say the carpet was changed courtesy of AREBA SAMBA? Gerald Bichok comes and decides to enhance lights. And he also has to put his photo on the other corner. And then the next day, somebody by the name Yasmin comes and decides to refurbish a bit. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we will be confusing and somebody will be asking, so is it that this building is owned by these gentlemen and ladies whose photos appear here? Or what it is? You see school buses on the road and every bus has a big wording, courtesy of Dr. EKURU AUKOT, Member of Parliament. And some go to the extent of putting their photos. I mean,
it should be courtesy of Kenya's taxpayers.
Courtesy of your ushuru.
Your ushuru.
And then you're like, what the hell? As I leave the issue of school buses and CDF, sometimes my heart bleeds.
Do you need another county?
I'll come to that, but I have to tackle this issue of CDF because it's a very emotive issue. You go to a school which has 176 students. It cannot afford to pay a watchman. It does not have a driver. It has a school bus. The school bus has stalled for the last 3 months because of insurance. If this school bus needs to go anywhere, they have to borrow a driver. And then you ask yourself, this member of parliament who held a grandiose ceremony to launch this school bus to this school, you ask yourself, does he have brains or does she have brains?
No, but you forgot I'm going to village sheres.
And we are not even told when these school buses are being hired,
yes,
where is this money going to? Because that's the other element.
This money is not captured.
How do you think your villagers will go to negotiate dowry?
I mean, if they're coming to negotiate my dowry, let them get. I mean, the point is, why should you need to prioritize when this money comes? Why should you buy a school bus to a school that does not have toilets?
Wakili, before you go to the question of counties, you mentioned something that for me is very important, and I hope we can speak about this regularly at the tackle. The question of representation. For me, Bitok, we questioned at using the Punguza Mizigo, what is the value of our representation today? Meaning, the person you elected from that constituency going to Nairobi, what value is he giving back to the constituents? And I'm sure our chairman, Joel Arama, is listening. And I can see he's putting a comment there questioning the seriousness of Dr. Kindiki Kizure, or professor. Now, I think we should learn some lessons from a country like America, and maybe Joel Arama can call later on and explain this. You see, in America, there's this thing called shutdown of government. The government is about to shut down. I took a lot of interest in that. But I remember during that time, when there's that debate, that government is about to shut down, they now come down to what they call essential services. Can you imagine postal services as an essential service? And then, of course, they relate it to the number of people who will not get their weekly paycheck, because government has shut down. Now, many times, regardless of whether it is the Republicans that control the House of Congress or the Democrats, it boils down to the common interest of their people they represent. Not themselves. So they can play politics to stress government, depending. And I remember I followed about 2-3 times when the Obama administration did not have the majority, in the House of Congress. But of course, the Republicans were using it politically. But when it came to voting, debating in Parliament, you found Republicans actually cross the floor and say, no, we'll vote with Democrats because me not voting for government to open up means I'm punishing my people who sent me here. So that is the extent of the quality of representation that we really lack here in Kenya. You know, when his people are dying of drought and animals, barely 2 months before election, since the election was concluded, he talks of presidential term limits. That's not even worth being called honorable. He's a dishonorable. In fact, we should introduce the title dishonorable member of Parliament. Because when you say somebody is honorable, he must be looking at the totality of things and the positive thing that come from his representation of his people. You cannot overlook the thing that is biting your people right now, and then you go into tangentially in some other, uncalled for things. Like now, increasing counts, and I'm sure Wakili will comment on that. We are going tribal. By the time you are proposing Kuria, Teso, you're actually going tribal.
That's about to have their own county.
Do we need counties? I mean, when you ask yourself, do we need counties? We have to look at what were the framers of the Constitution anticipating. What was in their minds was that we needed to have a devolved way of devolving development and taking services closer to the people. Devolution was meant to be a very sweet, or rather a very good story for the people of Kenya. Unfortunately, down the line, it was turned into a wailing song. Why am I saying it was turned into a wailing song? You're having counties which having a very little in terms of absorption for development, but a lot of money going into recurrent expenditure. Normally, when I read those reports, I pull back my seat and ask myself, so these people who are being paid, what are they exactly doing? When the absorption rate is below 10% for development, counties have left money lying idle at the central bank, but they have prioritized recurrent expenditure. All they are doing is retreats, seminars, workshops. I'm even told some counties are preparing their CECs for sports to go and watch World Cup. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I can deliver the World Cup.
When they don't even have a stadium.
I mean, I can deliver that World Cup at a very cheap rate somewhere on Ngong Road and put for them a TV. All of us will be watching it from TV. We ended up creating small village millionaires out of money which was meant for development, unfortunately. And let me be very categorical that it's not like we have not seen benefit from devolved government. We have seen some development, but is that enough? I would say no.
Okay.
If you see the amount of resources and the amount of time that is spent on benchmarkings, that is spent on seminars.
By the way, speaking of benchmarking, Wakili, do you know there's this county called Kericho? It's MCAs. I don't know how true that thing is, but I shared it on social media. They want to come to Western Hotel here in Nairobi for what they call
Pre-vetting.
Pre-vetting workshop.
Of chief officers.
Of chief officers. So they have not started the vetting yet, but they want to come to Western, spend millions of money for
Mic test.
Yeah.
That's the mic.
I was in Mombasa last week.
And why Western in particular?
Because it's a hotel. Anyways,
The location is strategic on the road.
it's near Wilson, so they fly in from Kericho to Wilson. Unashuka tu na unavuka. I was in Mombasa last week.
Will they fly from Kericho or they will drive from Kericho?
I was in Mombasa.
bypass.
As they enter Nairobi, there are many other hotels from Westlands.
No, they're entering through the bypass.
So it's easier.
It's closer to crossing.
I was in
Kuna
Mombasa.
hotel ingine pia hapo next to Carnival. Wanaweza sasa kuna Hemingways.
Hemingways ni pesa mingi.
I was in Mombasa for the better part of last week on private, of course not on government business. And every hotel you walk in, you will not miss an MCA caucus. I can tell you, most of the hotels I went on, they are in Mombasa, they're on one strip. They're on one stretch, nearly all of them. And every hotel you walk in, you will see a placard saying Uasin Gishu MCAs, Nyamira MCAs. And then you ask yourself, at what time do those boardrooms work? The boardrooms which they have heavily invested in. And at the end of the day...
How do they even build their own local economy?
Yes.
Because here you are enriching a county called Mombasa, which is nothing wrong with it. But even in your own county, there are hotels.
There are
Why
hotels.
not pump that money into those local hotels?
Which I also want to ask.
And I keep asking myself, you know, in the private sector, if today Daktari consults, if he hires me for a consultant and he sends me to Burundi, what he expects me is that when I come back from Burundi, I have to give a report.
A report on what?
There has to be a return on investment. But here you have a county that members just, in a whole month, they're just gallivanting from one hotel and from one town to another. I don't know.
But they don't even attend those sessions.
They don't attend those sessions. They're just out there. And you ask yourself, I have never listened to any county assembly and there's a committee coming to table its report and saying, when we had a retreat in Kigali, this is what we came up with. So at the end of the day, we are not fully benefiting from what was the intent of devolution. Right. On the premise of that, then the next question comes. Should we add more counties? And the answer is no. Okay. Because we are looking again. I mean, I'll come up and say, I come from Nyamira. I come from a clan called Bogetutu. Give us a county because I want to be the
your clan also, even governor.
Because I want to be a governor. So if you ask me, and I fully agree with what Daktari says, the conversation we need to have is how are we reducing those counties? Yes. The moment we reduce them and we put in necessary safeguards, then we are going to have the intended development as to why the constitution came in.
And I'll be talk. This is why we need to call out on the administration of President William Ruto. Both President William Ruto, or at least his deputy, Rigiji, has come out to say that we are actually broke as a country. And some of the tacklers are also confirming that we are broke as a country. So I will expect this administration of William Ruto to say, we don't have that largesse. We don't have the luxury of expenditure of money we do not have. We are struggling already with even a national debt that is now going up to upwards of 10 trillion Kenya shillings. We don't know how we're going to pay it. So they must curb this wastage. You know, you cannot live beyond your...
Austerity.
Yeah, you cannot live beyond your budget, my friend. So no other squeeze hapa tukulage ile samosa ya Java.
Things are better nature. Things are better nature.
So we have adjusted.
One thing, Daktari, is that we have seen a circular from we have seen a circular from national government in terms of the austerity measures, but we have not seen reciprocation of the same in counties. And I can confirm that we now have a competition of who wastes more. Last time I heard when somebody was trying to finger the county governments in corruption, somebody from the county government said, but look at the national government, there's more corruption. Yani, tumefika mahali, we are competing on who has more bad manners than the other. We are without shame.
And in case we talk, me, I just think, and that's part of the reason why I stopped going to church. Because I cannot stand the pretense in our society. What we have lost any ounce of morality in our country. How can we go and lavishly party in a beach resorts at a time when you're talking about drought and famine? I mean, even just as a leader, really, where is my consciousness as a leader that I'm going there partying, dancing, whatever? But in the country, we're seeing images of people dying, animals dying, but the leadership is partying.
I also wonder if all our MCAs go to Mombasa. My MCA Mombasa, by them, I hope they're coming to Turkana because they should be coming to some level of.
By the Daktari, you need to organize for us a visit too. I've not visited.
If we all go to Mombasa,
it's becoming a tourism town.
But the drive is so beautiful. The
drive is very beautiful.
All right, okay. Before we move to the PSS and the suspension of their vetting, GMO, of declarations, GMO, Moses Kuria has spoken finally. And he said that even being in Kenya, just being in Kenya is being a candidate for death. So there's no big problem with adding GMO on it. If that's what is going to take you home to Papa, then the better. It's just to me.
Abbas Njuguna has just made me laugh because of this subject of MCAs going for these what do you call it? These tours. Abbas says that others drown swimming in those hotels because they have never been to a swimming pool before.
Mwingine alikuwa naoga na ile gunia. Unakumbuka ile gunia tulikuwa naoganga nayo. Alienda nayo kwa picha. So, Mama, yes.
Anyway, on GMOs, to be honest with you, as a student of law in development back in the days, I remember my professor, Upendra Bakshi from the University of Warwick, was teaching us about these multinational corporations. Because what GMOs will do to our country today, it will invite the big boys from the big capitalist countries. And that way they will kill any form of agriculture that we do. For them, it will be about money. It will be, and there are lots of pros and cons around GMOs. Perhaps as an emergency measure to make sure that people maybe survive, so that they don't die of hunger, it may be a good thing. Although I'm totally opposed to the idea of GMOs because I know they will kill organic agriculture, and those people don't really care. It will be the big boys, the Monsantos, and the rest who will knock on our doors.
They'll be running business.
Yeah.
All right. And also, I had a conversation with someone. I was having a conversation with someone last week, and they're telling me that JEKUAT, where you are, I think you are the chairman. I understand the students came up with a breed of maize that was resistant to pests and diseases. And the chemical companies fought out that idea that it was not going to be released from the university, that breed of seeds and maize. So I don't know how I would not be surprised that it goes, but I think we need to start finding solutions.
You know what this conversation also means for us? It's somewhat laughable because we have got, we have a lot of innovation, by the way, in our universities. I mean, I was chairman of JKUAT for 3 years. And the innovations that those young boys and girls actually come up with. What we have lacked, Wakili, is a deliberate government policy that will link academia and industry. Yeah, and that is the only way it can transform society. For example, issues to do with the laptops, whatever, they're invented every day at JKUAT. We can actually do our own laptop. But again, the big boys, they are resistant. I'm not surprised. JKUAT used to make yogurt, natural yogurt. You can even find it in the supermarkets. But we have not popularized it to become our own. We are not making ourselves a market. So yes, of course, the big companies will oppose. Will oppose, that kind of invention. And you see, it makes a mockery of even our education system. I remember you and I probably when we went to university back in the days. Me, I used to know Egerton University as the hub of agriculture. Yes. Why isn't that agricultural knowledge not showing
being replicated in the economy
in our lives? JKUAT came, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. We should see technology and agriculture from JKUAT. We knew that Kenyatta University was an education hub. University of Nairobi was known for engineering, medicine, law, and other things, architecture. So there was specialization. Then we had the polytechnics back in the days.
So skill set.
Yeah. So we've lost in terms of our training, of human training, in taking advantage of academia and linking it to industry. So that honestly, we are not short of arable land. You'll be surprised, Bitok, that my native county, Turkana, actually the land has been tested and it's arable and there's a lot of water.
The aquifers.
Yes. Not even the aquifers, even the rivers, you don't need to go far in Turkana. 20 feet you have water and you can irrigate. If you go to a place like Katilo, parts of Lokori, you'll see that the bumper harvest, I don't know whether you remember, there's sometimes back actually the people of Katilo donated maize to the rest of Kenya.
Yes.
Yeah, this time they donated because there's a bumper harvest. So we are not short. We should not rush into GMOs, in my view.
Okay.
For example, you come from Wasingishu and all that area of Trans Nzoia and the rest. Look at the food. That can be the food basket of this country. But we are not even rewarding our farmers correctly. Maize is rotting in their stores. So we can actually feed ourselves. We are a population of only 50 million.
All right. But also on the same, Mareba, Wakil, don't you think we are also being hypocritical and pretentious also? Because we import food from these countries that are processed through GMOs. We import canned beef, canned meat, we import canned corn and maize. We still consume these things. Are we not being hypocritical that we are saying we are protecting ourselves but still consume from these countries that are producing through GMO?
Two issues, first of all, from where Dr. Adi left. There's this issue of universities. I think this is a conversation that we cannot avoid. And I put it up yesterday that I mean, when we were growing up, most of us wanted to pass high school and go to universities. The going meant traveling away from home. And I'm going to tie that down to the issue of universities nearly going under and they are not able to maintain themselves. Today, you are having Masinde Muliro University, Mombasa campus. You are having Mombasa University, Kakamega campus. You are having Kisii University, Meru Town campus. Meru University, Kisii Town campus. Nairobi University, Kisumu campus. Maseno University, Nairobi campus. The issue is, what we used to associate universities with in terms of academia is no longer there. We have turned our university, the specialization, that's the correct word. We have turned our universities into money-making ventures. Every university now wants to have a law school, an engineering school, I don't know what school, another school. Until you are having a university, a public university, in a building in the CBD, on top is a church, downstairs is a hotel. There's even a discotheque there. And this over-ambitious growth has led them not to be able to balance their books. And now universities are failing in terms of their academia, in terms of their research. In developed countries, you know that universities take a center stage in terms of research and innovation. And they're heavily funded to come up with solutions in issues which are facing the community. And you ask yourself in Kenya, is it that we have relegated this and the only place where we get to see our university students is when they block the road or when they have done something crazy? We have not given them that kind of treatment where you get an innovation from JKUAT and it's celebrated. That is a very wrong indictment in terms of our economy. Why are we having a country where academia is not respected?
You know what? Me, I feel that we went wrong when we now almost encourage the fact that everybody must have a degree. I'm not opposed to people having a degree. In fact, let as many people have a degree, but let's have qualitative degrees. Yeah, you know, we talk. I don't know whether you've built a house or bought a house. One of the major problems you'll face when you are buying a house, yeah, is the problem of plumbing. Why? Because we no longer train plumbers. The few that we have emigrated either to South Sudan, Mogadishu, and other countries. So we have shortage. And this is a result of us killing village polytechnics and converting them into universities so that everybody can have a degree.
For prestige.
Plus, to be honest with you, you know, there's a very interesting example I like to use, and our friends from the UK. One of the most vibrant associations, is it a trade union or what it's called? It is the Association of Plumbers and of England and Wales. Those guys, you know, they are paid per hour. These are people who went and studied a skill. And they make such a living out of it because you have to pay them per hour. So in Kenya, like Okili has said, we have lost, first of all, in specialization. When people just pay to go and get a degree, first of all, they are not focused on research. Because research is about you finding solutions to a societal problem. Okay. You know, you have to do research, and that research now has to be linked, like we have said, to industry. How do we industrialize that academic finding so that it benefits the wider society? The invention at JKUAT of that special hybrid, maize, by now we should have industrialized. We should have test farms. You know, we grow it, and then of course we put it in the market. Today we should be having a fully fledged dairy factory at JKUAT that will supply yogurt
across the country,
to each and every home.
All right. David Ngetich, we need to reduce the countries to 21. We have too many unnecessary administrative levels. Reduce MPs to 220 and MCS to a maximum of 40 per county and 83 senators. We need to reduce the counties. We have to, I think I've read that. I think he commented twice.
I wanted to complete on the issue of specialization. We need to get to a point where we come up with a policy of preferential treatment in terms of what we produce or we invent locally. A student at JKUAT invents a laptop. You want them to compete in terms of marketing with HP, a global market leader which has been there for all those years. And our public offices, we proudly buy items which are coming from outside. So we don't have that issue of preferential treatment. I remember sometimes back, C.S. Matiang'i, then he was asking a question that, why should we renew visas for somebody to mark the road? Why should we renew it for a Chinese to be marking the road from Eldoret to the airport? That's a very simple issue, but when you look at it critically, there's a broad spectrum in terms of we import toothpicks, but the local toothpicks are not selling. We're importing a laptop when there are laptops which are being made by JKUAT. Why don't we come up with policies on preferential treatment? And if we come up with...
We have it, okay. If you look under the Procurement Act, for example, a locally owned company, I think, is entitled to that preferential treatment, about 15%. So even when they are bidding, actually you need to look at the locality of the bidders. If it's a local company, they are going to enjoy 15%, if I'm not wrong, under the Procurement Act. So ideally, our own local companies should be able to take the job. Plus now, you mentioned a very important thing. You know, having gone to the University of Nairobi, even served in the council there as a member, and then JKUAT, you know, it really pains my heart, Bitok, when I see, and I'm not xenophobic, neither am I, I'm not racist either, but we have been training our own engineers. Why is the representation of people in making our roads foreigners? Sisemi foreigners cannot work here. Me, I've worked in other countries, but I will take an expertise. I'll do consult maybe in terms of matters constitutional law, constitution making. That is what I have done in a number of countries, because again, people want to study how Kenya completed its constitution making. So that's an expertise maybe you take to some of these countries emerging from, but you will never find me being invited to go and help the United Kingdom or America to write a constitution, because they have got their own experts. You know, they can probably borrow one or two things from us in terms of, you know, but to write an expert, you will not find, you know, friends. But some countries that are not like Kenya, like I've worked in Liberia, South Sudan, and Lesotho, so they look at us as like, you know, this big brother country. They have done ABCD. That way, I can take that expertise, share my experience. But things to do with road, you know, there are two graduation ceremonies in almost all our universities, twice, June and December. So in those graduation ceremonies, you'll actually see engineers, medical doctors.
You don't see them out here.
But you don't see them out.
You know, LC Cheroba, morning watching live from Westbridge, but representing Kapngane and Nandi County. Chairman Jola Rama, what about Kindiki and his proclamation? I expect better from an expert in law. Kiptoa Victor, bring government employees, CS or PS to the tackle. We are the other side, Bito piga simu moja tu. Haya, najaribu kuwapigia leo, nimejaribu kutafuta kuria kwa sababu ya mambo ya GMO. Sijampata, ndajaribu tena. Bas Njuguna, a governor is a small president of his county, let him or her to be seen to be doing something with the 300+ billion shillings allocated rather than crying or criticizing the national government to help people. Charles Mongai, I'm in Glasgow, Scotland, tuned in. Asante sana. Charles has invited us as well to Glasgow in Scotland. We are coming thick and fast. Abbas Jiguna, in other countries, school buses, computers, furniture, projects, etc. are purchased by Ministry of Education. They have nothing to do with the local leadership. Just Mongai, Kenyan politicians goes to Parliament to enrich themselves. Abbas Jiguna, others drown swimming in those hotels because they have never been to swimming pools before. Right? Okay, I've met many politicians here in Glasgow, but what they enjoy is just shopping in malls and asking which shops are good. Wow, okay. Those in Mombasa exit to Dubai. All right, interesting. But it makes it embarrassment in Kenya. Kenya seed company should simply do its work and produce quality seeds, and the government would only import fertilizer. Local farmers are able to produce enough maize. Elton, good to see you. Santa Sana. Good morning. Good morning to you. Now, the vetting of PSS has been suspended by the court, and the biggest question that has come out is it a matter of law or is it a matter of judicial activism? And every time a government makes a move, there's always a court injunction. What do you make of this?
I've tried to find actually that petition to find out what are the reasons they are giving. But before I come to that particular issue, let me first of all talk about the Nairobi one, the suspension of the vetting of the
CECs.
CECs. You see, first of all, that petition, I've quickly looked through it, is founded on very wrong premises. The Association of Muslim Lawyers, I think that's what they are called, and the Nubian community are the ones who went to court to say that their people have not been included. Now, let's draw parallels. let's look at Mandera, Wajir, and probably Garissa. Who are the people who are in that cabinet? If I'm not wrong,
very good question.
If I'm not wrong, maybe 100% actually all Muslims. Yeah, and probably from one ethnic grouping.
Mobilization.
Now, I've been a resident of Nairobi for for a couple of decades now. Where do you draw the line for the inclusion of groups? Because there are many group formations. I know a number of Turkanas who live here. Should I also petition now Sakaja and tell Sakaja, as a Turkana resident in Nairobi, I also need to be included in your government. Where do you draw the line? Are we now going to go tribal? We have got 44 tribes. Mm-hmm. The Asian community can today say, well, we also want to be included. The Hindus,
the Chinese,
the lesbians and gays community of Kenya, we know they are there. Mm-hmm. The atheists, even Chinese now, a substantial number here in Kenya, they are resident. Mm-hmm. They are paying taxes. I think for me, that's a dangerous move to make. Because I will argue for service delivery. If I'm not getting services, from the county government of Nairobi, then I've got every reason to question the service delivery, but not necessarily the inclusion, because it's not possible. Even if you look at the national government alone. Now, national government has not included every tribe in Kenya. They've tried to balance, but all we can expect really for me is service delivery. Now, going to these PSS, to be honest, it's not very clear to me why they have stopped the PSS from being vetted. Again, I go back to my argument with regard to Nairobi. It's not possible to include everybody in government.
They said there's a problem with gender. I think the gender balance and youth. I think there were some of the issues raised. Inclusion.
But you don't stop the vetting, but you actually can petition for the inclusion of the youth. And I agree. Youth inclusion, gender inclusion is a big issue because, again, picking the cue from the previous administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and of course with William Ruto, they never met the gender rule. In their 10 years, they never met even a third of that. So again, I'm yet to read this petition. Maybe Wakili has read the petition. I haven't read it. So I don't know what are the issues actually before the court. And yes, there could be an element of actually political activism as opposed to judicial activism. Because, like we say, if there is an element of discrimination, let's see. Who is this who's been discriminated? And government is representative, Bitok. Government is not about all inclusion. Yeah. It's actually representative. Mm. It is in service delivery that you expect government to have included all of us because we must all enjoy services from the government, but not necessarily us being on the same table in government. I don't think that's possible.
Maybe
Wakili has read the petition, but I haven't really read it.
Of course, not going deeply into the petition, I feel that first of all, the legal issue is the Employment and Labor Relations Court was established to deal with issues between an employer and an employee. I feel that the issue of vetting of PSS and CECs, Nakuru, we have an issue also for CECs, and now there's an order stopping the vetting of chief officers. In strict sense, is not an employer-employee relationship. The relationship has not been created yet. So I feel that our good learned judges are misapplying the law on this issue. That is my first feeling. The second feeling, I feel that when it comes to an issue which is dominant on another arm of government, then there needs to be, the issue of ex parte orders at the end of the day might grind our country to a halt. I am not saying that it's not justified, but as a judicial officer, you need to look at the circumstances. Because when you are applying the law, I know the issue of public interest also plays a very key role. And as Dr. EKURU has said clearly, I saw the frustration by the governor of Nakuru the other day. She is saying that court stopped vetting of my CECs. Court has again stopped vetting of my chief officers. What do you want me to do? Again, not everybody can get into government, and that is a reality. He has clearly put it. If you go to a northeastern county, even Turkana, have Christian, the Association of Christian Lawyers headed there and said, no, you don't have Christians. So,
it's predominantly one tribe.
Yes.
Mandela is predominantly the Somali. Same thing Wajir, Garissa. Probably even Tana River, if you go, the predominantly certain. So I think for me, we should really question, like Wakili has said, and by the way, let's repeat this very clearly. This is not a strictly a labor relation issue. So he is right. The judges are misapplying this law. To be honest with you, if there was any balance, both in the cases of Nairobi, Nakuru, and even now the government administrator William Ruto, the judge should have balanced what we call public policy vis-a-vis individual rights.
Yes.
You know, and public policy always outweighs individual rights. We expect a government to be in place to begin to serve us. Now, if you strangulate it, like in the case of, for example, Nakuru, you don't want CECs vetted, you don't have chief officers vetted. So how do you want this governor?
And you want service delivered.
And yet the public expects. So that's why public policy must be weighed against individual rights. And there are a lot of decisions to that extent, a lot of precedents. So this vetting, for me, is compromising public policy service delivery. It is political, it's not even judicial in my view.
We talk. Today, if Dr. EKURU AUKOT becomes the president of the Republic of Kenya, he will have an agenda which he has sold to the Kenyans to make them vote for him as the president. And if he looks around and realizes that the CSs who can help him deliver his agenda come from one village, who are we to question him on that? At the end of the day, he has the mandate of the people to be able to implement. Meaning that whatever he is doing, the PSS is picking, the CSS is picking, he is picking them to help him drive the agenda of serving Kenyans.
Article 130, as you ought to know, requires of the president to balance regionally and ethnically. But even in the balancing of regionally and ethnically, again, it's not possible to include everybody from an area. You must be seen to have demonstrated some degree of balance. You remember when we were discussing one of the issues about public participation? Yes. Just something you hinted earlier. You see, public participation is not just about cosmetic publication. It is what is called meaningful participation of the people. For example, even in the creation of these so-called like now, if Parliament has stopped that and Parliament wants to vet, you see, Parliament also asks for views from the people of Kenya. The solicitation of those views has to be meaningful. Don't just ask for the sake of it. We must be seen to be able to see that, okay, at least the public has participated, they have brought in memoranda or views about ABCD. So this, in my view, is really not a strictly legal judicial question. It's more politics. And again, this is where, in my view, the judiciary runs the risk of politicizing itself. Because if it really wanted to guide this country or guide the administration of William Ruto, it must balance the interests of the public and that of the individuals. And like we have said here, and our killer said, the relationship of employer-employee is not yet established.
It's not established. So what is the?
So what are you
okay.
So for once, I'm calling out some of those decisions. I have never been a fan of calling out the judiciary because we appear there every day, and we also agree that judicial authority is derived from the people, and it's supposed to be exercised as stipulated in Article 159. So, but I feel that some of these decisions are not for public interest, and the judiciary has to look, as Dr. has said, where is this intersection between individual right and public interest and policy issues?
And Wakilia can confirm as a legal practitioner, there's a very worrying trend from some of these decisions from the High Court, especially, I will dare say, there is an abuse of interim orders.
Exactly.
You see, the moment you give an interim order, as an injunctive order in the interim, you're actually collapsing that institution from
functioning.
For me, the fairer thing to do, and and I'm sorry that we are criticizing this judgment even though it's active before court, the fairer thing to do is to tell the parties, go serve your application, your petitions, come and argue. But meanwhile, we are not going to paralyze the operation of a national organ, which must give services to the people of Kenya, wherever they are. So that for me is the
power
fairest
belongs
way.
to us.
Yeah?
Power belongs to us. Even the courts belong to us.
So the fairest thing to do is to actually say, go serve. I'll give you a date on priority basis. Come and argue your petition. Let me be convinced on it on merits or demerits of it.
Did you see how the decision for the chief administrative secretaries went when it played out in courts, the last government? the courts declared themselves and said, we are not going to chase them from office today because we understand that government is an ongoing concern and it has to function. Whereas we have realized that their way of employing and their terms of service are shrouded in mystery, we allow them to complete their term, but at the end of the term, this position is declared illegal. So it ensured that one, government functioned.
You know, in my view, even where this matter is filed, my honest opinion is filed in the wrong forum.
Exactly.
If it was bringing issues to do constitutional requirement, it should go to the Constitutional Court or the Judicial Review and arm of the court. Not to take it to a labor relations court,
There's no labor relations court.
It's not labor
You are a
relations
nominee. You're not yet in office.
In other news, finally, MPs break ranks on two things. They broke ranks on voting on Yala. Interesting times. And actually, I saw Kanini.
By the way, pose that question. In fact, why I don't like this hypocrisy from Parliament, whoever's going to stop this vetting of PSS, look at the vetting of cabinet secretaries. Was Nani rejected by the committee?
Yes.
What is the name of that? Malonza. But later on, what did they do? If they really believe in their own vetting processes, why was Malonza rejected by the committee in the report, but then later on they voted for her? So this hypocrisy has to stop. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
So, the broken ranks on Yala. I saw Kanini Kega is thanking Rigiji. We're closing in. And wana taifa leo wamesema wafutwa machozi. So we've seen the son of Kalonzo Musyoka Kennedy finally married to the Yala again. For the third time. Is it the third or the second time?
I want to stop you there. The son of Kalonzo Musyoka has a name. And please...
Kennedy.
Yes.
I've said Kennedy Musyoka.
No, you said the son of Kalonzo.
I said the son of Kalonzo Musyoka.
I want to pick this conversation from there.
But is he not the son of Kalonzo?
But I feel it's a good conversation. Daktari, I don't want...
When you run for public office, do they refer to your father?
No, because it's not
Yes. Exactly.
So do you know why you are referring?
Daktari, I want when your child walks around, I don't want them to say, I am the son or I'm the daughter of Dr. EKURU AUKOT who ran for presidency. I want them to introduce themselves by their name and say, this is so-and-so, this is what I do.
This is...
that is
So
possible.
your son will come and say, I'm Jaden Umuy.
No.
So
Wakili, that is very possible. It is the ideal thing to do. But I think in terms of people occupying public spaces, sometimes you cannot avoid that because after all, they enjoy certain privileges. You know, today the first lady cannot just say, my name is Rachel.
Rachel, and you leave it there.
Rachel Ruto,
you have to finish. The wife of the president.
So inakuja na first lady. And depending, and by the way, why the reference of son of Kalonzo, the daughter of Raila Odinga, is because these are people who have enjoyed certain privileges. And like, for example, I'll tell you, I've got friends in both camps, you know, and they say, Bana, some of us have been dying for this mzee for a long time. Yani all they can just nominate ni mtoto wake. And in any case, to be honest with you, you know, I really struggle to see the value of Yala representation.
I've always wanted to know what.
For example, if you take stock, let's forget about Winnie Odinga. Maybe she can do miracles when she gets there. This Kennedy Kalonzo is now a second term.
Yes.
Yala.
AREBA said he removed the Kalonzo.
No, he said
Kennedy Kalonzo. So this Kennedy Kalonzo, whose father is Kalonzo Musyoka, is actually a second timer. Yes. But I'm trying to ask myself, did I even ever see this guy speak in that Yala assembly? And what can we associate him with? Unfortunately, these people bring themselves to be discussed because of who they are. Because had it been, for example, say some ordinary folk, whose father, like say Bitokia or AREBA, we may not be having this conversation about you. But we also know your father is the leader of this political party that has nominated you. Come on, it's not rocket science, Bwana. Secrecy was never invented in this
AREBA is also saying we should not say of ODM or of Wiper.
And then we have Maina Karobia. It's called Godfrey Mwangi Maina.
Mwangi Karobia. I think it's...
Because why are we not having a conversation about Hassan Omar, who ran for governor of Mombasa, who was even a senator of Mombasa? We're not having that conversation. We're not having a conversation about Kanini Kega. You know, and then there is the other lady called
Fardu or something. But anyway, my issue was not even that. My issue was the fact that actually, at some point, the MPs can agree, you know, on two matters. One of it, of course, is that they broke ranks to vote for Yala across board. Because when you look, there was no way that these guys are going to get the votes without.
Look at the votes they get.
Yeah.
240, 257.
You're seeing Azimio guys in Jubilee congratulating, thanking Mount Kenya leadership in Kenya Kwanza. Thank you so much for voting in our award. So I don't know. My issue was, so MP sometimes come back. The breaking ranks on that, and also on the stalemate of CDF.
When it comes to benefits and personal interests, we have seen from history tells us that this is one of the things that bring the people in Parliament together. When it comes to discussing their car grants, when it comes to discussing their salaries, when it comes to discussing something that affects their own, they tend to really come out with strong views in terms of how they need to protect their own. The same. I saw a proposal the other time in terms of how they want to be taken care of after retirement. And I mean, the conversation is supported from all sides of Parliament. And you ask yourself, why don't we see such unity of purpose when it comes to discussing hunger, when it comes to discussing floods? If today there was to be a discussion about salaries, 90% of parliamentarians will be in that house. If today there was to be a discussion, we talk about the poor state of roads from I don't know where to where, there will be a lot of excuses and people will not be in that house. And sometimes that shows us that Kenyans, sometimes we are on our own. We pick people, give them a contract under the social contractarian theory, which ideally they're supposed to represent our views, talk on our behalf, and ensure that they legislate for us, they represent us, and they oversight on our behalf. But they end up flipping that coin and do those things on their own behalf. And sometimes I sit and wonder, why do we keep getting it wrong all the time? The issue of IALA, the breaking of ranks was the breaking of ranks because it was to favor people within the ruling class. It was to favor their own. So when they were looking at Kanini Kega, they were not looking at him as an Azimio person. They were looking at him like one of our own members who unfortunately didn't capture the seat. One of our own who still enjoys the perks of coming to the members' lounge in Parliament and one or two benefits. So that is why the breaking of ranks was there. That breaking of ranks normally comes in when it is to serve selfish interests, unfortunately.
By the way, Vito, I don't know why you are surprised. Sometimes I am surprised Kenyans are surprised about the behavior of members of Parliament.
Are you trying to say that my surprise is pretentious? I'm very genuine in my surprise. I get a surprise.
But you see, like Wakile has actually alluded to, Kenyan Parliament and politics is a club, a private members club. So they have a code of conduct, how they behave and how they treat each other. You must have seen, and you know you and I, we interact a lot with these people. Yeah. You must have seen them even in social places after work saying, hey, jana mlitulima, ngoja kisha. Then they laugh, they buy each other drinks. So Kenyans are being treated to the gallery. Yeah?
The cinema,
mavipindi. That's what Kenyans are being treated to. But the real negotiation, you know, but if we take Kenyans back to 2018, okay, 2017, during the presidential, race between Raila, Kenyatta, of course, the rest of us were also there in that presidential race. The kind of insults Raila and Kenyatta were exchanging, yeah. And right now, 2018, they had a handshake. They went into political bed together. William Ruto complained to us a lot how his own boss has relegated him. But the first person he employed,
Employee number one.
Through executive order. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who has been telling us all along, he's a bad man, he has relegated me, I don't know what I did to him, he's betrayed me. But he
don't pay bad with bad.
Employee number 2, Raila Amolo Odinga. He still retained his job as the AU representative on infrastructure. Yet Ruto all along was complaining about how this handshake, it has thrown him out of. So you will imagine he will have those changes, because then how can I work with somebody who has actually relegated me, mistreated me, abused me, insulted me publicly? Amenita tanga. In fact, if you remember, even almost his last rallies, he was basically giving Kenyatta a dress down. Ati wewe wachana na mimi bwana, wewe sijui nini, it was very, you can see the vile, the anger. But election imeisha, employee number one. So these people are a club. They are lying to us. So Kenyans, I think you're on your own.
I think for me, what I find very interesting is, the chairman, the party leader of Azimio, which is Raila Odinga, is still complaining about the elections. He's talking about, but then again, the chairman of Azimio is already employed. He's going to government tools. He actually travels using government Air Force planes.
I remember last week there was the COP27. So some fools, sorry to call people that, but I think their actions were foolish. They were insulting me because of a bit of criticism of Azimio and So I sent to one guy a message. I told him, by the way, can you locate a place called Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt? Have you seen the pictures? Guess who are rubbing shoulders? Raila Amolo Odinga, Ruto, and their cabinet. So why are you here fighting me because of my criticism of the conduct of these people? But look at them. They are going in private jet. So I think Kenyans need to sober up. They need to sober up and probably prick themselves and live the reality that is Kenya today. Don't die because of a politician. At the end of the day, what we have seen so far, these politicians will do anything for themselves. Again, like, for example, at the risk of criticizing this MP from Mumias East, Peter Salasia, PK Salasia, we're even shown images where his villagers actually built a home for him. They built a house for him. I saw that, unless of course somebody was being malicious. They constructed like a quick house for him because they see huyu mheshimiwa wetu hatutaki apate aibu. But look at the next thing what he does. He's displaying buying a Land Cruiser LC 200, 80 million.
New shape. 2021.
Land Cruiser 2021.
The MP for Mumia.
Yes.
I call him the TikToker.
Yeah.
He TikToks more than legislating.
So Kenyans.
Does he? But how did we win an election?
What?
How did he win an election?
Most people voted for him.
People voted for him.
That simple.
It was just like a guy wa mtaa, jamaa wa mtaa, and people could associate with him to kijana wetu. Hata anajua ana nyumba tukamjengea nyumba chap chap. Saa hizi anaenda kuwaonyesha niko na V8 LC 200.
I have to let you know that my people of East Mumias East, that don't talk about a bill that I've presented to Parliament. Don't talk about a speech that I've made in Parliament. But guys, guess what?
And then
we have a V8.
Yes, and I mean, he has more. I mean, the MP for Mumias has more videos online than speeches in Parliament. I think he's made more videos in terms of what he's doing, who he's with.
Last time he attempted to address Parliament, he was like, Madam Speaker, sir.
We must respect the people.
So let me ask you, Gerald. How then do you want us to take such a gentleman seriously? When all he has are videos, are online videos. I mean, leave those online videos to the tackle. For you as a parliamentarian,
why?
Your work is basically...
Are you reducing us as well to TikTok? This is a serious show. It's a very serious show.
You're not on TikTok.
Turn it into a TikTok thing and video.
I mean, Dr. If you check his videos,
I've seen.
You will not see a video of him presenting anything in Parliament, but you will see a video of him dancing and Purahia Maisha. He says, Purahia Maisha ndugu.
But I think maybe next week we need to have a conversation on terms of quality and quantity of leadership, because I think we are so much into quantity. And over time, people are even losing interest in these positions because they're like, okay, what are you going to argue? What the hell? What are you going to have in that environment?
We brought in Punguza Mizigo, we had a lot of support actually from parliamentarians themselves, especially those who had been there before. And what they were saying, it's even difficult now to make a meaningful contribution in Parliament, because we are just too many who don't even know each other. Let me give you a story of our one-term MP. I think it was 2017. So we used to meet in some social places. So this fellow, I didn't know he was a member of parliament, to be honest. He was somewhere in Bungoma. I did not know at all. But he's seated not far from us. He's, of course, sipping his fermented waters, I think out of respect for Jesus' first miracle on earth.
So he had a chance to make tea.
Yeah, so he was sipping some fermented waters. But I think I did not know. Later on, I came to realize he was hitching. He was like, how can we sit there and not recognize him as a mheshimiwa? I think after maybe he took 3-4 glasses of his wine, he walked over to us. Akasema habari zenu bwana.
Kwani mjaniona?
Amnijui. You know, he told us that. Amnijui bwana. I'm
Why are you behaving abnormally?
Yes, I'm honorable so and so. You know, to be honest, I had no clue.
I know.
I had no clue the guy was a member of parliament. He was a first timer. It's a big parliament of 349 members. If you had the senators, you're talking about 416 representatives. So he can't know. I don't know this fellow. It's not like that he was a public figure.
Lakini hata siku hizi hata ukienda.
But he walked over to us and he was kind of questioning us. How can you guys ignore me, bwana?
How can you just behave like this?
I have encountered that before, Gerard. Anyway, you know, if you throw a stone anyhow, you might hit a member.
You're likely to hit a member of
I have
parliament.
encountered that. We are at an official function. Somebody seated next to me is a member of parliament. And I'm like, so guys, I think to avoid calling each other away, we can do an introduction. So we did a round of introduction. Then when he gets to him, he's like, what do you mean, you guys? You don't know me. And I'm like, out of courtesy, just introduce yourself. And I'm honorable so and so. He's like, you guys, I'm surprised that you don't know me. I'm a member of parliament. I was like, yeah, thank you very much. But you're not a member of parliament. We just needed to know your name.
And you know, in the rules of parliamentary democracy, you know, you cannot introduce yourself. I cannot say, I am Mr. EKURU AUKOT.
Mr. Doctor.
Or I'm Doctor. You know, that title is up to other people to confide it to you.
Yes.
And for example, when you say you are a honorable member of parliament, I'm honorable so and so.
Are you your acts honorable, first of all?
Normally, that phraseology, that expression is when you are on the house.
Okay.
You know, on the floor of the house.
Kutoka sisi wote ni raia.
Kutoka tunakuita Gerald Bitok, MP, Moiben. MP, but you say honorable so and so. In fact,
Honorable Professor, EGH.
You've had the speakers, you say, let the honorable member of parliament address them, but on the floor. But now, hii kitu imeingia kwa watu akili. It has intoxicated them.
Your tackle of the day, AREBA SAMBA.
Kenyans, I think we are moving away from the hangover of the election. We need to, it's our responsibility daily to question government. We have given them the responsibility to legislate, represent, and oversight on our behalf, depending on which level. If it's at the governance level, they have the responsibility of ensuring that we have development. If you are the MCAs have a responsibility to also legislate, oversight, and represent. Sometimes we have turned our members of county assembly and our members of parliament into professional mourners. Let us not judge them by the number of funerals they attend. Let us not judge them by the number of functions they attend. Let us not judge them by the amount which they contribute. Let us judge them by what the law provides they are supposed to do. Sometimes we say this is one of our own because he comes to every funeral. But he has abdicated his duty. His constitutional duty, and we are celebrating him for unprofessional conduct. Actually, I mean, when you celebrate an MCA because he has been with you, and he when there's a bereavement in the village, he is the first one to arrive. That is a good social responsibility, but that is not his professional job. That is not what the law anticipates. Okay. So let us not celebrate our leaders by doing unprofessional work. Let us also celebrate them and push them to do that which we gave them that responsibility to do. Thank you. Right. Have a good day.
All right.
I think my tackle of the day is that I really want government to prioritize solving the problems of Kenyans. And I go back to where I started this show by saying that people are actually suffering out there, but we are not seeing the government coming through for Kenyans. A lot of people are going through a lot of problems, people sleeping hungry, people can't find Medicare. I think we want to see government be more proactive. And like Wakili said, the hangover of election is over. Now it is actually time to sit down and actually craft solutions for the many problems that Kenyans are going through. I will also end by saying that at least my experience of the last 1.5 weeks, experimenting on using Bolt and Uber, I think I call on our government to step in. This Bolt application is actually holding Kenyans into servitude. There is no way somebody can drive you for 170 shillings when it cannot even buy him 1 liter of fuel for that car, leave alone the wear and tear. And so the labor of Kenyans is being used to enrich other people just because they're out of the country. I understand even these Bolt people have refused to have an office here in Kenya. Yes. Because they don't want to be confronted with the real issues.
They have something on Riverside, though, somewhere around.
No. I'm told they closed down.
They did?
They closed down. But to me, the fundamental question is they are actually enriching themselves with the sweat of Kenyans. And I can see there's a lot of depression and desperation among these. People just tell you, sasa nikikaa nyumbani EKURU nitafanya nini? Nitafanya tu kazi. Lakini at the end of the day, he has expended his labor, but there has not been any compensation. So I will urge government to step in. And the reason I'm saying this, this is passion to me. In 2017, I was representing a group of Uber drivers, owners, and partners. And we were summoned in Parliament. And we complained about how Uber was exploiting Kenyan laborers through these, these appointments. So, and I remember a member of Parliament called me and told me, Bwana EKURU, unajua, hii kitu sasa mkiendelea na hii kitu itaribia rais kura. So let's not exploit our people the expense of enriching others. Just the same way, the situation in Saudi Arabia about Kenyan domestic workers is really worrying me. We need to see government step up. Even if it means really breaking ranks with Saudi Arabia, let it be, because it cannot be at the expense of the lives of our people. I can see Uber is doing Bolt is doing the same thing, and so let's take care of Kenyans. But we want to see a government that actually comes through because it's a government of the people.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming in. I think I'll just also pick it on that let's be each other's keeper. I think we are losing the culture of Ubuntu. Today I can see EKURU being strangled, and I'm just passing by recording and say, hey, mbona vile EKURU amepigwa ngeta avula menyonga.
Na una record video.
Imagine, video. I saw another muzungu who was dying by the roadside. Amedungwa kisu.
Hapa, Alingam.
It's sad, and we just good. So let's learn again to be each other's keepers, because what affects me today can also affect you tomorrow. And like AREBA said, we've left the campaigns. We have a government in place. Now it's a point to go to keep asking for services and also ensuring that we can support it to give the best it can. And when also it's wrong, we should never fear to call it out. Let's all be a part of building a bigger nation. Watu wangu wa Eldoret, please, tafadhali, mwachana na hiyo maneno. Bure mimi nitakuja kama elder nikuje niwajeroshe nyaunyo one by one. All right. Until Monday, enjoy your weekend. This has been the Tackle the Sharia Week edition of the 18th of November 2022. And it ends now. Bye-bye. And we love you.